Hello and welcome to another episode of GirlExec. I'm Kristy, always here with my lovely friend Isha, and today we're here to talk about effective presentations. Presenting really is an opportunity for you to shine. It's an opportunity for you to shine with your expertise in your area of the organization, to show how you could synthesize ideas and information, how well you could communicate new ideas, as well as your style of leadership and communication. At the same time, it could be stressful. It could be stressful in how you distill down a complex topic. It also could be stressful in how you communicate that new idea to really gain buy-in.
So Chris, let's jump in. The first thing is that there are 4 things to consider in any presentation. Who is the audience for this information? Is it a peer? Is it a manager? Is it a potential customer? That matters. What information is most appropriate for that audience? The information that you share with your project team is different than what you would share with a manager or your manager's manager. Why am I sharing this information with them? What is my objective? What is their objective? You must be clear on this because everything that you talk about should all ladder up to that. And finally, the how. How can I best share or communicate this information? And today's tips focus on the how element of presenting.
So the first tip is state your objective and your desired outcome. A lot of times, especially if you're nervous, you could jump right in without setting clear expectations. And it's critical to make clear. Otherwise, they'll try to figure it out quietly. They may not even say anything, but they'll quietly sort of thumb through and say, what exactly are we talking about and why are we here?
Have an effective presentation. Really, the audience should be able to open your presentation and read just the headlines to understand the main point that you want to communicate. So instead of generic headlines like competition, results, you can control the takeaway by putting your main message right up front with the power of a story headline. For example, there are 3 key competitors in the market. This program is going to increase sales by 10%. Even if you need to maintain that generic title due to a company template, sales, results, you can use a subheading to tell your story. The worst thing that you can do is to have a headline that says sales data with a bunch of information with no clear idea of what you want people to take away. Don't leave it up for interpretation. You control the message.
The third tip is structure and layout. I'm extremely visual. Anyone I've worked with knows that about me. So when you think about the structure, you have to think about, is it a 5-step presentation? Is there a flow in terms of how the topics will flow? There have to be visual indicators to tell you that, whether if it's numbers or it's color coding, anything in that way that gives a visual cue. And connected to that are performance cues. So if you're talking about sales, you're talking about revenue generation, whatever the topic is, can you use red, yellow, green? Can you use bar charts? Can you use arrows? Something that quickly orients the individuals who are there receiving your presentation to the information.
Chris, the easier you can connect to things people know, the more they can get it and listen to you. So I absolutely agree. Tip number 4 is to use preset questions to spark discussion and leave time for this. How many times have you seen someone stand up and present for an hour and then say, any questions? It's hard to solicit meaningful feedback with that type of a broad statement. So we recommend that you actually include in your presentation a short set of thoughtful questions to spark that discussion. It could be, do you think we should go with scenario A or B? How can we make this opportunity bigger? What should we change to make it better? Questions that really relate to the feedback that you need and that anchor people in something tangible to respond to. And I want to say this too. The worst thing you can do is stand up, present for 59 minutes, and then leave 1 minute for this discussion. You'll walk away without knowing how your audience has truly received your content.
Well, if you stand up for that 59 minutes and leave 1 minute for others to engage, you can't do step 5 or tip 5, which is close with an ask. It is critical that you, particularly when I think about this with senior leaders, They want to help you. They would not invest the time in a meeting if they weren't there to help and figure that out. So solicit their support, solicit their approval for the next phase and or the resources for the next phase. And when I think about this with peers and or cross-functional teams, the same is true. I would also add, have clear owners and deadlines. This always makes it really makes it more clear, and there's alignment between you and your colleagues.
Absolutely, Chris. So those 5 tips are the minimum, but we also want to give you a list of do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is, do consider and prepare for the questions that you may receive. Often we spend so much time thinking about what we're going to say that we don't consider what they may say back. So consider the obvious questions that you may get and prepare your answers for those as best you can. As we've said before, do leave space for questions and discussion. People come to engage, not just to listen. So whatever space you have for your presentation, aim for a 50-50 balance between you talking and leaving room for those questions and conversation. Do have a shortened version of your presentation in your head. A lot of times you don't receive the time you expected, especially if you're going after someone else in the meeting. So have that half the time version and a quarter of the time version in your head so you can get your key messages across. And honestly, if the timing is too short, they get to you and you have 5 minutes left, just proactively ask the team if they'd like to come back to your topic in the next meeting. Rushing through doesn't benefit anyone. Finally, do consider the flow and energy of your content. A presentation is more than just what you say, it's how you make people feel. So if you have both good news and bad news to share, perhaps start with the good news to set the tone and then talk about the challenges that would come. Consider the energy that you emit in your presentation as much as you consider your words.
And I'm closing with some of the don'ts. Don't have a wordy slide. Be very concise. Keep all the words you want to say either in your mind or in your little talking points so that it's just crisp. The second don't is don't have disconnected headlines. If you have a headline that says sales are up in the 4th quarter and then you have information about 1st through 4th quarter, it's disconnected. And lastly, don't have a high focus on process versus business outcomes. When I think about this, I really would consider about 20% on process and 80% on impact, results, help needed, those things that are really actionable.
Absolutely, Chris. We hope that today's tips can help you land your next presentation with clarity, with simplicity, and impact. It makes a difference in your leadership and in the results that you can drive. And whatever you do, as always, please subscribe to GirlExec and share our channel with those who you think can benefit. Conversations to enrich your career and life.